I didn't plan to change my body. That's the lie I told myself. What I actually planned was an experiment, something small, controlled, temporary. The kind of thing you do once, learn from, then lock away as a strange memory. At least, that's how it started. My name is Evan, and for most of my life, I've been painfully ordinary in the ways people expect. Reliable job. Predictable routine. The type of guy who blends into rooms instead of standing out in them. I work in product testing and quality assurance. My entire career is built around analyzing details, finding flaws, and understanding how small changes affect perception. Measurements. Proportions. Adjustments. What I didn't realize was how much that mindset would eventually turn inward. Because once you start noticing details for a living, it becomes impossible to stop noticing them everywhere. Including in the mirror. I had never considered myself a crossdresser. Not seriously. Sure, I'd been curious. I'd noticed silhouettes. I'd wondered how certain clothes created confidence that seemed effortless. But curiosity isn't commitment, and observation isn't action. That's how I justified it. I told myself I was just interested in how appearance shapes identity. How posture changes when you feel different. How people respond when your outline doesn't match their expectations. All very academic. Very safe. Until it wasn't. I wasn't alone in my life either. There was Isabella. My girlfriend of 2 years. Sharp-minded. Emotionally intuitive. The kind of woman who could sense when something was shifting long before it surfaced. She had a way of asking questions that weren't really questions. You think too much about how you look lately, she said once, not accusing, observing. I laughed it off. Occupational hazard. She smiled, but didn't drop it. That was Isabella. She never pushed. She waited. And somehow, that was more unsettling. The setting where everything began wasn't dramatic. No big event. No emotional breakdown. Just a quiet stretch of time when I was alone, surrounded by my thoughts, with too much space to notice what I usually ignored. I had been researching something unrelated, design ergonomics, body perception, visual balance, when I stumbled onto discussions about padding and bra shaping. Not sensationalized. Not exaggerated. Technical. Measurements. Angles. Distribution. It fascinated me. Not because of attraction, but because of transformation. How a few hidden adjustments could completely alter how a person carried themselves. How confidence could be engineered. How presence could be shaped. I remember thinking. If this were a product, I'd want to understand it. That should have been my warning. The first thing I told myself was simple. I'm not doing this to become anything. I just want to understand how it works. That sentence became my shield. Because admitting curiosity is easier than admitting desire. I didn't tell Isabella. Not because she was judgmental, but because I wasn't ready to define what this meant. Once you name something, it becomes real. And I needed this to stay theoretical a little longer. Still, she noticed the shift. The distracted silences. The way I lingered in thought. The subtle distance that comes when someone is exploring something alone. You're somewhere else lately, she said one evening. I shrugged. Just work. She nodded, but her eyes said she didn't believe me. The irony is, I wasn't hiding from her. I was hiding from myself. Because the truth was uncomfortable. I didn't just want to understand padding and bra hacks. I wanted to know what it would feel like to see a different version of myself reflected back. Not permanently. Not publicly. Just once. That's how I justified the first step. Not transformation. Testing. A controlled scenario. Private. Reversible. What I didn't realize was that once you start adjusting the outside, the inside begins responding faster than logic can keep up. And I had no idea how much one small change would affect everything else. Because this wasn't about clothes. It wasn't about deception. It was about alignment. And I was about to discover something that would make it impossible to unsee myself the same way again. The first time I tried it, I thought I'd be clumsy. Awkward. A fool in my own skin. I was wrong. I was meticulous, careful, almost surgical. After all, my job demanded precision. But precision doesn't prepare you for the way a body reacts when it's manipulated for the first time in a way it secretly wanted. I started small. Just a pair of lightweight pads, nothing obvious. Hidden under a tight-fitting shirt. The moment I slid them into place, I felt different. Not just in shape. In presence. I moved toward the mirror slowly, as if approaching something sacred. My reflection stared back, familiar yet sharper. Softer. Stranger. Somehow more alive. I lifted my shirt just enough to confirm what my hands had already told me, the silhouette had changed. Curves where there weren't before. A subtle prominence that caught the light. It wasn't dramatic, but it was enough to start unraveling me. And that's when the thrill hit. Not excitement. Not shame. Something deeper. Something I hadn't named before. I realized I was imagining how the world might see me like this. How I'd carry myself differently. How I'd sound different. Move differently. Even breathe differently. The sensation made my chest tighten, my stomach flutter, my hands tremble. I had crossed the line from curiosity to temptation. And for the first time, I understood just how close fascination and desire really are. The first obstacle appeared almost immediately, my own hesitation. Would Isabella notice? Could she tell I had done something different? Would she think less of me? I could feel her presence everywhere, even though she wasn't there. Watching. Judging. Smiling quietly at my internal struggle. I shook my head. It was ridiculous. She wouldn't see anything. And even if she did, what did it matter? And yet, I kept replaying her words from last week. You think too much about how you look lately. A laughable remark at the time. But now it felt like prophecy. The second step came naturally, almost compulsively. I experimented with a bra hack I'd read about online. Soft cups. Adjustable straps. Subtle padding. I studied the technique, measured angles, placed the pieces with care. The first moment I fastened it, I froze. Not out of fear, but shock. The change was subtle, yet undeniable. My chest looked fuller. The curve blended naturally with my torso. My posture shifted without conscious thought, my shoulders relaxed, my stance softened, my gait altered in response to the new balance. I stared in the mirror, trying to recognize myself. And I did. But I also didn't. And in that absence of certainty, a strange elation took root. I wasn't just wearing the padding or the bra. I was wearing permission. The kind of permission you give yourself when no one else is around to notice. When curiosity is allowed to cross the line into action. I could feel my pulse in every nerve ending. Hands clutching the edges of the shirt. Breathing deeper than usual. Eyes scanning the reflection as though it might speak back. And yet, I couldn't stop. I tried walking. Sitting. Stretching. All the small, banal movements that felt like tests. Every time, my body betrayed me. I moved differently. Acted differently. Felt wrong and right at the same time. Vulnerable. Exposed. Yet stronger. Alive. A creeping anxiety rose. What if Isabella came in? What if someone saw? But alongside it was a thrill so intense it almost overrode fear entirely. I was discovering a version of myself that had been quietly waiting all along. A version I hadn't acknowledged, not because I didn't want it, but because I hadn't realized it existed. Later that night, alone, I examined every detail in the mirror. Not for flaw. Not for shame. For discovery. I noted the subtle shift in shape. The curve of the chest. The way my arms hung differently. The tilt of my shoulders. And then I did something I hadn't planned. I smiled. Not the cautious smile I wore for work. Not the polite smile for friends. A private, almost secretive smile, the kind that comes only when you catch a glimpse of something forbidden and wonderful at the same time. And in that moment, I understood. This wasn't just an experiment anymore. It was a doorway. The next day started with hesitation. I caught myself staring at the pads and bra hacks again before even getting out of bed. My fingers hovered over them like they were keys to a forbidden world. And maybe they were. I told myself it was just curiosity. Just observation. But every thought betrayed me, the way my mind replayed the reflection in the mirror, the subtle thrill of curves I wasn't supposed to have. Even putting on regular clothes felt different. Shirts clung differently to my chest. Jackets draped differently across my shoulders. Every fabric, every movement, reminded me of what I had tried, what I had become privately. At work, every glance, every reflection, every slight change in posture felt magnified. I caught myself straightening more often. Adjusting my stance unconsciously. Touching my chest, just a little, as though checking that the illusion hadn't slipped. And then Isabella's voice echoed in my head again. You think too much about how you look lately. I didn't hear her physically, but I felt her presence, like gravity, pressing down. The weight of being observed. Judged. Loved. Evaluated. It was intoxicating, and terrifying. That evening, I returned to the experiment. I didn't start small this time. I combined the basic padding with a more intricate bra hack I'd read about in a forum dedicated to body shaping. Adjustable inserts. Push-up placement. Hidden contouring. Subtle but transformative. It was technical. Methodical. I measured twice, positioned carefully, and then I froze. The change wasn't subtle anymore. My reflection wasn't just altered, it had shifted. My torso looked softer, more feminine. My shoulders seemed narrower. My chest fuller. My silhouette, smoother. I touched my side lightly. The fabric stretched differently over my curves, almost responding to my hands like it was alive. And then came the unexpected, my posture corrected itself instinctively. My spine aligned differently. My weight distributed differently across my legs. I moved across the room without thinking, and suddenly, every motion felt new. It was intoxicating. I wasn't just looking different. I felt different. And the sensation was magnetic. I could almost feel the confidence radiating from my reflection, drawing me toward a version of myself I hadn't known existed. Yet with it came a sharp undercurrent of panic. What if Isabella noticed? What if she realized I had gone further than I said? My chest tightened at the thought. My heart hammered. Every instinct screamed secrecy. I caught myself rehearsing excuses. It's just research. It's just technical curiosity. It's nothing serious. And yet, even as I whispered the lies to myself, a part of me knew the truth, I wasn't going back. That night, I tried walking in front of the mirror, testing how curves shifted with movement. How hips swayed differently. How shoulders and chest aligned. It felt natural. More natural than it had any right to feel. And that terrified me. Because it wasn't supposed to feel right. I was playing with identity, with perception, with a part of myself I'd never acknowledged. And yet, my body was responding instinctively, as if it had been waiting for this all along. The tension wasn't just internal. Isabella began noticing subtle differences, how I shifted in posture, how I hesitated before turning, how I carried myself with a cautious awareness. She didn't ask directly. She didn't comment. She just watched. And that perhaps more than anything, made the experiment more intoxicating. Being secretly observed, even unknowingly, amplified the thrill. It became a game of balance. How far could I push the transformation before it became visible? Before it became permanent in someone else's eyes? By the end of the night, I realized something fundamental. This wasn't about padding anymore. This wasn't about temporary experimentation. It was about becoming. A slow, deliberate, seductive transformation of body and mind. And once you start letting yourself become someone else, even partially, you can't go back to pretending you're the same as before. I fell asleep staring at my reflection one last time that night, tracing the curves in my mind, feeling the weight of secrecy and exhilaration pressing down at once. And I knew, tomorrow, the experiment would take another step. One I couldn't easily undo. I thought I could control it. I thought I could experiment in private, adjust in secret, and keep everything neatly compartmentalized. I was wrong. It started innocuously. A casual outing, coffee, quick errands, nothing planned, no one expecting me to stand out. I wore the padding and the bra hacks I had perfected over the last few nights. Subtle. Invisible. Perfectly balanced. Or so I thought. The first hint of danger arrived in the form of a familiar voice. "Hey, is that you?" My heart stopped. I turned slowly. And there she was, a colleague I ran into sometimes, someone I hadn't expected to see outside work. Someone who knew me well enough to notice even a minor change. I froze. The world seemed to stretch. Every footstep, every rustle of clothing, every shifting reflection in the shop windows amplified my awareness of myself. I wasn't wearing anything overtly feminine, but something was different. My posture. My silhouette. My presence. And now someone else could see it. I forced a smile. Casual. Natural. Tried to laugh as if everything was ordinary. "Hey, yeah. Just grabbing coffee," I said. The words sounded hollow in my own ears. Every instinct screamed, run. Hide. Undo. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I let myself exist in the moment. Tried to move naturally. Tried to speak normally. Tried to convince both my reflection and the observer that nothing had changed. And in that small, impossible stretch of seconds, something shifted inside me. I wasn't panicking. I was aware. Hyper-aware. Vulnerable, yes, but also alive in a way I had never experienced. When the colleague finally walked away, I exhaled. Not relief. Not triumph. Something different. Satisfaction, perhaps, mixed with fear. I had survived exposure. And in doing so, I had realized, I liked it. The risk. The tension. The thrill of being seen and not undone. It scared me, but it also exhilarated me. By the time I got home, my mind was racing. Isabella noticed immediately. "You look different," she said, eyes sharp, voice soft. I froze. Heart in my throat. "Nothing," I murmured. She tilted her head, studied me. "Really? Nothing?" Her observation wasn't judgmental. It wasn't accusatory. But it was precise. And it cut deeper than any external threat ever could. That night, I stood in front of the mirror again. The curves. The posture. The subtle fullness I had achieved with the hacks. All visible. All undeniable. And the thrill returned, sharper than before. I realized I wasn't just experimenting anymore. I was transforming. And with each transformation came risk. Exposure. Vulnerability. And yet, I couldn't stop. The following week, the experiment escalated. I didn't just use the padding and bra hacks I had mastered, I combined them with layering techniques, subtle contouring, and strategic posture adjustments I had read about in forums devoted to professional body shaping. Each addition was deliberate, calculated, scientific. And each pushed me further along a line I couldn't step back from. By now, every reflection was a test. Mirrors weren't just reflective, they were judges. I studied the curve of my chest, the way the pads shaped my torso, how the bra subtly pushed and lifted, giving me a silhouette that felt impossibly real. I moved, walked, stretched, and felt my body respond naturally. It wasn't just the padding. It was me. Something deep inside had shifted. And that's when the fear crept in. Not from outside. From inside. If I kept going, there would be no turning back. Isabella noticed, of course. She didn't comment directly, but her presence felt heavier, more focused. Her gaze would linger just slightly too long when I adjusted my shirt, when I checked my reflection, when I unconsciously shifted my stance. "You're adapting faster than I expected," she said one evening, almost casually. I swallowed, caught between pride and panic. "What do you mean?" I asked. She smiled faintly, a quiet, knowing smile. "I mean you're learning. Adjusting. Becoming comfortable in ways I didn't predict." Her words were praise and warning at once. The real test came when I left the house. It wasn't dramatic. No parties, no events. Just a routine trip, grocery shopping, errands, small interactions with people I knew casually. And yet, the stakes felt enormous. Each passerby, each glance in a reflective surface, each casual comment from a cashier or neighbor carried weight. Would they notice? Would they judge? Or worse, would they suspect? And the most dangerous part, Isabella wasn't there physically, but her awareness was palpable. At one point, a neighbor waved. A small, casual gesture. I froze for an instant, heart hammering. My movements became calculated. I laughed softly, shifted my weight subtly, and forced my body to feel normal. It worked. No questions. No comments. But the rush was addictive. Back at home, Isabella's presence was undeniable. "You've been pushing yourself," she said. I nodded. "It's just experimentation." "Sure," she replied, voice soft, calm, precise. "But everyone experimenting eventually has to decide, do they step back or step forward?" Her words hung in the air, a challenge I couldn't ignore. And I couldn't. That night, alone, I added the final tweaks, contouring pads, subtle shaping inserts, posture adjustments I hadn't dared before. I looked in the mirror and saw it clearly, curves that were no longer an experiment. They were reality. My reflection wasn't temporary. It was permanent, at least in my mind. I touched my chest, traced my silhouette, and realized something undeniable. Once you see yourself this way, there's no undoing the feeling. And then Isabella appeared at the doorway. Quiet. Calm. Observing. "You're ready," she said. I turned to her, startled. "Ready for what?" She smiled faintly. "To stop pretending. To let this be more than just a game." My chest tightened. My pulse raced. I wanted to protest, to retreat. But the truth was terrifying and exhilarating, I didn't want to. I had crossed the point of no return. The day started ordinary, deceptively ordinary. I had everything prepared, padding perfectly in place, bra hacks adjusted, contours smoothed, posture practiced. Every detail meticulously rehearsed. Every movement calibrated for perfection. And yet, my stomach twisted into knots the second I stepped outside. The test wasn't planned. It came as a simple errand, delivering a small package across town. But the streets were unpredictable. People I knew, friends, neighbors, co-workers, moved through my path. Every glance felt like a spotlight. Every reflection became a judge. And Isabella wasn't physically there. But I could feel her influence, quiet and potent, as though she were silently evaluating every step I took. The first close call happened within minutes. A colleague I hadn't expected to see stepped out of a shop, waved, and smiled. My heart froze. I forced a casual wave, a practiced smile, and kept moving. Every step felt deliberate, every gesture exaggerated just enough to avoid suspicion. It worked, but only barely. The adrenaline coursing through my veins made my palms sweat, my knees weak, my breath shallow. By the time I reached the cafe, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just an experiment anymore. This was performance. Every movement, every posture, every glance was a calculated effort to maintain the illusion I had built in secret. And the truth was, the illusion had become real. Inside the cafe, I caught sight of myself in the window reflection. I froze. The curves. The silhouette. The posture. It was unmistakable. And it was mine. Not a disguise. Not a temporary shape. Mine. The weight of that realization hit me harder than any fear of exposure ever could. Then came Isabella. She hadn't said she would meet me, but there she was. Standing quietly near the counter, observing. Not judging. Not intervening. Just watching. Her presence was magnetic. Intimidating. And for the first time, I felt truly, irrevocably exposed, not because anyone else could see, but because she could. You're pushing yourself, she said softly, stepping closer. I swallowed. I thought I could control it. She tilted her head, a faint, knowing smile playing on her lips. Control is an illusion. You know that now, don't you? Her words weren't a challenge. They were a declaration. And in that moment, I understood the truth I had been avoiding. This wasn't about hiding. It wasn't about secrecy. It wasn't even about curiosity. It was about embracing something I had long denied, something I couldn't undo, even if I wanted to. The tipping point arrived seconds later. A passerby, casual, oblivious, walked past the window reflection, and froze. A double take. A faint whisper. Panic surged. I felt my hands tremble. My breath hitched. Every instinct screamed, retreat. Undo. Hide. But I didn't. I met the reflection head-on. Held it. Acknowledged it. And in that instant, something extraordinary happened. I felt strength. Confidence. Vulnerability and power, all at once. The world hadn't reacted. No one had judged me. And yet, I had changed. Isabella stepped even closer. You're ready, she said, quietly. Calmly. Firmly. Ready for what? I whispered, my voice trembling. To stop pretending, she replied. To stop testing. To stop hiding. To let this be real. Her gaze pierced through me. The weight of her observation, of her understanding, made me shiver. And I realized the final truth, there was no going back. I made my choice. Not for her. Not for anyone. For myself. I straightened, lifted my chin, and breathed in the reflection fully, the curves, the shape, the presence I had cultivated in secret. It wasn't just padding or a bra anymore. It was me. And just as I felt that profound, terrifying liberation, something unexpected happened. A soft sound behind me. A movement. A glance. Someone else had noticed. Not loudly. Not aggressively. But unmistakably. The ripple had started. And it would change everything. The cafe went quiet for a fraction of a second, though no one else seemed to notice. My reflection in the window stared back at me, not just the reflection of my body, but of someone I hadn't dared to admit existed. Curves perfectly shaped, posture instinctively feminine, confidence radiating in ways that both thrilled and terrified me. And then I felt it, the soft, subtle awareness of a presence behind me. I turned slowly. A stranger's eyes met mine. Just for a second. Just enough. Recognition. Curiosity. A flicker of something that made my stomach twist. Not loud, not pointed, but undeniable. Someone else had noticed. My heart raced. My hands shook. Every instinct screamed to run, to undo, to hide. But Isabella was there. Her presence beside me was grounding, but also intense. "You're not hiding anymore," she said softly. I swallowed hard. I didn't expect. "Expect me to watch?" she asked, almost teasingly. "Or expect someone else to notice?" Her words were gentle, but their weight pressed down on me like gravity. The stranger glanced away, distracted by a passing pedestrian. I exhaled, relief washing over me. But the thought lingered, heavy in my mind, someone had seen. Even briefly. Even unintentionally. The ripple had started. Back outside, walking down the street with Isabella quietly beside me, I couldn't stop thinking about it. What if they followed? What if someone asked questions? What if the secret I had carefully nurtured, my private transformation, my hidden identity, was suddenly exposed to the world? I squeezed my hands into fists, feeling the tension coil in my chest. "I can't go back," I whispered, almost to myself. Isabella looked at me, calm, steady. "Then don't." Her words should have been reassuring. They weren't. They were a challenge. And in that challenge, I felt both exhilaration and fear unlike anything I had experienced before. The sun dipped low over the city, casting long shadows across the sidewalk. Every reflective surface seemed to taunt me now. Every glass window, every mirror, every passing car held a possibility of exposure. I could feel it, the thrill, the danger, the transformation. And I knew, my life had changed. There was no going back. No pretending. No hiding. Only moving forward.